Everybody. I am so thankful for all of you to join us tonight. I am Ankita Kaul, SRB Council PTA Health and Wellness Chair. And tonight we've all gathered here to address the issue of eating disorder. And I'm very, very grateful to have Kevin Olmsted with us. And he's going to be sharing his family's personal journey of navigating through their daughter's diagnosis of anorexia and the years into her recovery. Kevin is here tonight because he wants to sound the alarm about how pervasive eating disorders are and how parents can recognize the signs that the children may be at risk. And finally, based on everything that his family went through, Kevin is also writing a book, and he wants to be a resource for other parents who do not know where to turn in their time of crisis. And before I hand it over to Kevin, just a few housekeeping points. First, this session is being recorded for the benefit of our friends who can't join us tonight. And two, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box to send me the questions directly you want to ask the speaker. I will address the questions on your behalf to Kevin without revealing any names at the end of the session. So please bear with us. We are going to try our best. Kevin has been gracious enough, and he's made sure that we address as many questions as we can tonight. So without delaying anymore, I want to hand it over to Kevin. Kevin, I'll request you to introduce yourself a little bit as well before you start.
Great, thanks, Ankita. And thank you everybody I can see all the names, but thank you everybody for being here. So my name is Kevin Olmsted. My wife, Tina, and I have lived here in Danville about 13 and a half years. Our kids went to Vista Grande, they went to Los Cerros, and they go to Monte Vista now. Actually, our son goes to Oregon, and my daughter is a senior at Monte Vista. We've played Mustang soccer, we played squirting lacrosse. We've really been a part of the community for a long time. We love living here. I want to make sure everybody tonight understands I am not a physician, and I have absolutely no medical or professional training in any of these medical issues. I essentially have 2 degrees in the world. I studied English literature at Berkeley, and I'm a certified sommelier. One could argue I'm qualified to tend bar. So just know that my presentation tonight, it's really based on my experience, a lot of the research I've done. It's based on a tremendous amount of interviews. So I never knew any of this 3 years ago. When we first came to this, I had nobody to turn to. I had nobody to ask questions to. And my point in giving this presentation tonight, as I've given it to other parents, is I basically want to be a resource, a first call, a question for somebody who thinks they're going through it, or they're in the throes of it, or they're getting turned around in it. And I can't solve your problems, but I've been down the road, and I think I can help you guys at least identify the way to go. Eating disorders just go so unnoticed. They go under or undiagnosed, undertreated. They're essentially hidden, they're denied, and there's this whole kind of culture of secrecy and just control, and it's just got to stop, bottom line. Our story started almost about 3 years ago. My daughter was a freshman at Monte Vista. Her brother took her to school every morning, so she had to take 0 period. So, as a freshman, she took 7 classes. She was on the honor roll to 3.8. She made the girls' soccer program at Monte Vista, and as anybody knows, it's a pretty hard program to make. And she started there. She went over and took on a starting role on the junior varsity lacrosse team. She led the team in every metric except scoring. She was the 2nd highest scorer. She was named the MVP of the midline. And she had a lot of friends. She had a lot of social media following. She was getting asked out. So what you had is this profile, kind of a high achieving type A people pleaser. And at the end of her freshman year, about 3 years ago, she had a hip injury. Nothing big, just a small hip injury, but it caused her to go to PT, and it caused them doctors to say, you can't exercise anymore. And while there's so much more behind the scenes that had built for years, that happened to be the straw that broke the camel's back. In a period of 60 days, she lost over 30 pounds, and she just completely changed. She dropped out of our life. She became dark. She became moody. She became dismissive. And my wife and I had no idea what the hell was going on. I mean, we didn't understand eating disorders. We just thought that something was going on, something was strange. Even a little bit into that first summer, we let her play on her club lacrosse team, and I stupidly let her go to Illinois and Oregon and play these tournaments. And she was just a whisper of herself, and the whole time I'm wondering to myself, like, what's going on? What do I do? We tried to get into her pediatrician to say, oh, you got to be cleared for fall sports. Unfortunately, a lot of pediatricians aren't really well trained to identify and work with this. We worked with a dietitian who, again, gave a lot of great information, like, oh, here's what she should be eating. Wasn't the right thing. We finally got to a psychologist who specialized in eating disorders. And at that first appointment, the psychologist's alarm bells were ringing in this woman's head. She picked up the phone that night. She called the most preeminent eating disorder physician in the East Bay, a woman named Dr. Sue Knight, and got us in the next morning. And we walked into the Sue Knight's office the next morning. And after 30 minutes of vitals and checking, Sue Knight put us in a car and sent us to Stanford Hospital. Stanford has a specialized unit that deals with eating disorders. And essentially when we got there, my daughter was hooked up to a heart monitor, was put on bed rest. And we were basically told that if we hadn't gotten her in there right then and there, we were within a week or two of maybe losing her. So the first step in going to the hospital is you go to a hospital to save your life. You go there, get your vitals stabilized, and you start eating and you start drinking and you try to like reboot the data center and get everything back. So she was on bed rest. We learned about weight deficit and weight gain, and we learned about calorie feeding. We learned about vitals and orthostatia. And ultimately she got in a wheelchair. Then she was allowed to walk around a little bit. But as I'll kind of touch on later, hospitals are not where you go to treat eating disorders. You leave the hospital once you no longer need hospitalization. So my wife and I are, barely into this. We have no idea what the hell's going on. We tried to treat her for about 3 weeks back in the summer of 2019 at home. We thought we can feed her, we can do this. We got nowhere. It was terrible. It was utterly terrible. And within those 3 weeks, we had doctors telling us that my daughter had a higher level of care. So what we ultimately opted for was a residential care program. And probably nobody on this call knows this, but one of the biggest companies in the country called Centers for Discovery. They own homes in many, many states. And there's a beautiful home they own here in Danville that sits back on secluded 2 acres. My daughter went into this residential program with no phone and no no computer. She wasn't allowed to wear shorts because you can't compare her skinniness of legs with the other kids. So she lived in there with 5 other kids for 2 months, and she wasn't allowed to get off the couch. She had to do group sessions, one-on-one sessions. She had to learn to eat, and the stress and the terror got so bad with her, she couldn't eat. She ended up being intubated with what's called a nasogastro tube, or an NG for short, basically tube up nose, tube down into stomach, hook up to pump, and send a bunch of Ensure down there. Wasn't good. Caused her a lot of problems. So while she never got cured and never got really that high, she got refed more. The insurance company said, well, that's it, we're done. So then we sent her to a daily outpatient program for about a month and a half, where I dropped her off in the morning. She did meal prep, same thing, counseling, psychologists, psychiatrists, dietitians, counselors, group work, same company. And again, the insurance company had to be convinced every week that it was worth paying for. But as we're now getting towards Thanksgiving of 2019, my daughter is really struggling. She's going downhill. The doctors, everybody's saying that she's slipping. And we had arranged to possibly get her back into another res program in Denver run by the Eating Recovery Center. By the way, great organization, the ERC. And when we approached our daughter almost right there before Thanksgiving, she just stuck up her hand and said, I know I'm struggling. I don't want this. I'm scared. I need help. Put me back in the hospital. So we went back to the hospital for about another 5 days. And at this point, my wife and I have been doing this for 4 months. And my wife had been doing a lot of research, and we've been talking a lot. And we decided it was time to bring this home. There was no more residential, no more hospitals, no more outpatient. We had to treat it at home. So it's called Fbt Family-Based Treatment. So we came home in late November 2019. My wife took family medical leave from work. I told my partners in the wine business I had to take off for a couple months, and we locked the front door, and we just started treating her at home. And we had to feed her 6 times a day. We had to watch her like a hawk while she ate, make sure she didn't hide, spit, give to the dogs, put down in her water bottle. And we had a calorie count, and we had a weight goal, and we had to watch her for an hour after she ate every time to make sure she didn't throw anything up. And so we started our journey on FBT in the late November 2019. And after a couple months, my wife had to go back to work, and we had to make the decision that I just stuck up my hand and said, somebody has to stay home with her full time. So I'll just quit working, I'll drop out, and I will be home with her full time. So I've now been completely out of work and been home full time for about 28 months. I like to say I stopped working. My wife calls me retired. It's up for debate. So people ask me, what are eating disorders? So eating disorders are mental disorders. It's really no different than bipolar, schizophrenia, or addiction. It is a mental state. It's thinking that's antithetical to the well-being of that person. And eating disorders tell you, don't eat, control your body, have a fear of food. But the really awesome thing, I hope everybody got the sarcasm there, eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any mental disorder ever diagnosed. Because one of two really great things happens. Either the eating disorder wins and the person just is so terrorized, they stop eating and they starve themselves to death and they have organ failure. Or in trying to struggle through years of therapy, the terror, the anxiety, the depression, the fear gets so bad, people just end up killing themselves. But eating disorders, you have to treat them. You can't let them go. We all know that you can be a functioning alcoholic, a functioning gambler, a functioning druggie. You can get by for decades, you're fine. You can't not eat, right? I mean, you can't just not eat and get by. There's a super tiny percentage, and all of us probably have heard of, have seen, we probably know an adult who is that 1%, who never got treated for an eating disorder, but they struggle with food. They will never come to a dinner party. They're not very social. They're introverted. They over-exercise. And I'll tell you, if you have a bad relationship with food, you're generally going to have a bad relationship with a lot of people in your, a lot of people in the rest of your life. Types of eating disorders. There's a lot of the kind of big ones as the American Psychiatric Association has something called the Diagnostics and Statistics Manual of Mental Disorders, or called the DSM. All of these have finally qualified in the DSM and are considered medical issues, which could also mean they're up for insurance coverage. My daughter has anorexia nervosa. Anorexia is you avoid and you restrict food, and you massively overexercise to make sure you compromise any calorie that went in. Bulimia nervosa, they will eat some, but they will still avoid and overexercise, but anything they eat, they throw back up. And you can only imagine the havoc on the upper digestive tract, the esophagus, the trachea, the teeth rotting out, all the damage to your mouth from years of throwing up is terrible, or the depths to which your sensitivity goes away, and the more and more things have to be lodged down the throat to initiate the vomiting, and then people end up swallowing pencils and letter openers and straws. It's terrible. There's binge purge, where people love to overeat because they want to really get into the food, but again, they throw it up. And then the other big one that's getting a lot of attention is called ARFID, Avoidant Restricted Food Intake Disorder. It takes picky eating to the extreme. You know, we all know those picky kids that, like, the green thing on the plate can't touch the orange thing on the plate. That's fine. These kids say, I can only eat pizza and spaghetti, and they will starve themselves for days or weeks unless they only get pizza and spaghetti. And all of this can start as early as 5 or 7, but generally eating disorders will show up around puberty and generally around middle school. And so then we'll get into kind of what are the origins of these eating disorders. And here's kind of a short but not definitive list. The first way you can look at it, it's kind of a chicken or egg thing, if you will. It can start psychologically. So again, as kids hit puberty, and for the first time in the world, they will have a notion or a thought or an idea they never had before. Well, Jenny looks skinnier than me. Jim has, bigger chest than me. She has a bigger thigh gap. He doesn't eat his food. Why do they get away with not eating? And those ideas and thoughts lead to actions, which become behaviors, which becomes patterns. And that you start to repeat that, it enforces the ideas, and then you slip into eating disorder. Conversely, it can start physiologically, where somebody wants to exercise and they want to diet, but that dial gets turned too far. It gets kind of stuck, and all that starvation and exercise leads to a sense of euphoria and starvation, which then reinforces keep doing the behavior. Another big driver of kids with eating disorders is OCD. And this isn't the kind of OCD we all might joke about, like, oh, let's get my OCD on and go organize the cooking closet or something like that. These are kids whose brain is bound by rules. Color inside the line, there is no deviation. If I restricted food yesterday, I have to restrict food tomorrow. I will not eat any white flour carbohydrates. Proteins can be no bigger than my 2 fingers. And all of this infinite litany of rules because of OCD starts to lock a kid into eating rules, which then leads to behaviors, which reinforces the eating rules. Eating disorders can germinate as a coping mechanism, and this can be for either boys or girls. If they suffered any kind of trauma or assault or sexual assault, say they were sexually assaulted. They never want to be attractive again. They're going to overeat and make themselves as unattractive as possible. Conversely, they want to disappear and become as small as possible so nobody will ever see them again and they'll be safe. So they restrict food. Something that's been for a long time, boys don't ever get talked about with eating disorders. And please know boys are just as affected as girls. They're just not reported as much. There's this whole, best way I can describe it is the athlete culture. You know, it's no longer good enough to make the team and be a great contributor and score touchdowns. You have to be in the weight room. You've got to be super ripped. You got to be yoked. And it's not just from lifting. You have to restrict and only X amount of protein. And you got to look better than him and stronger than him. And that athlete culture is really driving it in boys. Great news, against sarcasm. If you have anybody in your family that you're suffering from an eating disorder, look back up your family tree. This is generally hereditary. And the last point I'll talk about on origin, this is not a cause, but I do need to tell this story. I've heard it from more than one physician, and I'm going to tell the story as it being about a little girl. So little girls are the most delicate, beautiful, amazing things in the world. But right before a girl goes through puberty, their body is like a huge construction site. And the foreman screams out, okay, we're going to build a woman. We're going to build bone mass and tissue, and we're going to have a reproductive system. We're going to have babies. We need materials. We need energy. So right before a girl becomes a woman, that body's got to store energy before it explodes upward. And you've got this little girl, most delicate time of life, doesn't understand the changes going on. And somebody inevitably says, are you eating a little bit too many sweets? Are you getting a little big? I'm not saying that leads to eating disorders. What I'm saying is the way that we look at children and talk about food and talk about body image, it's not good all the time. How about that? So what do you look for? That's a great question people get to me all the time. So if you're wondering about it, or you're curious, or maybe you're scared right now, a couple things. What are your kids eating? Well, what are their eating habits right now? Are they suddenly not eating with you? You used to be at the table all the time in the kitchen. Wait, where are you? Oh, I'm in my room. I ate in my room. Oh, I ate at school. I ate at my friend's house. I ate out. Are they avoiding eating around you? What are their food choices? They no longer will eat all the favorites. They won't eat anything you make. Do they want to suddenly out of nowhere become vegan? All they eat is vegetables. Are they subsisting on smoothies and bowls? Take a look at what their food choices are. Also, when it comes to food, take a look at maybe they're spitting it up. Go look in the sink in your guest bathroom. Go look for spit up stuff in paper towels and in the garbage in the garage in the side yard. Do you suddenly have more ants and mice than you ever thought you had? Look, if you're finding things in their closet. Are they hiding and spitting up the food that they are eating? Are they massively overexercising? We all love our kids who are athletes. In a town like Danville, we got all these type A competitive athletes, and it's awesome. But have they gone from just working out for the team to running twice a day? Are they going to the gym super early and super late? And it also, take a look at their weight. I mean, I got to be honest, one data point doesn't tell the whole story, but if suddenly like their weight just massively drops off, you can see a thigh gap in your daughter, you can see bones. These are things that have got to kind of ring a bell a little bit. Outside of a generally moody teenager that we all have to become a lot more depressed. Are they super inward? Are they super dark? Are they really weak? Do they have a lot of hair loss? Have you noticed that suddenly there's all this hair growth? Because when the body loses fat and gets cold, it will grow a ton of hair. Are they super just antisocial? Did your daughter get a period and suddenly she hasn't had it in 3 months? Again, just some telltale signs, but things to look for. If you've gotten to that point and everything I'm saying to you, you're going, So here's where we kind of get tactical. If you are going to treat a kid or address or investigate a kid for an eating disorder, there's two things you got to look for. There's the state of mind, the disordered thinking that starts this craziness, and their weight. So I call it state versus weight, treating the psychological and treating the physiological, getting them weight restored, getting them sober enough that they're better at psychology. These are the two tracks you got to work on. So immediately you've got to get to a doctor, hopefully a doctor that kid has had for a while. Do a blood test. You can check for any signs of bone weakening and osteoporosis, any iron deficiencies, or if any of the organs are not operating the way they should be. You have to check the metrics of the heart. All of us right now, 60 beats or more normal. The 50s, that's fine. If you're an athlete or pretty fit, any heartbeats in the 40s, that's not good. My daughter first got admitted to the hospital with a heart rate of 41 and it got to the 30s overnight. Also check for really low blood pressure, obviously. And another metric you will learn is called orthostatia. So as we've all been sitting here listening to me babble on for like 15 minutes, if you get up right now and go get another glass of wine, your heart rate is going to increase 12 beats per minute. Your body said, hey, we need power to walk. And the heart goes, no problem, I'll do it. Somebody who's malnourished and underfed and with an eating disorder, their orthostatic measurement will be 20 or more beats per minute. My daughter's was 60 when she first admitted. So the difference between laying down and getting up. The second thing you need to do once you've seen a doctor and you assess the physical, you need to find a psychologist who specializes in eating disorders. You may or may not want to find a dietitian. Dietitians are amazing. They can, if you're not into food and cooking and you don't really know your way around, that's one thing. Even if you're really fluent in food, they can really talk to you about proteins, carbohydrates, fats, calcium, how much the body needs of all those things throughout the day. We found early on the dietitian, great information, but it was just somebody to stoke a bigger fight with our daughter. And we're pretty fluent in food. So we've come back to it now almost 3 years later to work with a dietitian, but consider a dietitian. And finally, you need to consider using a psychiatrist. Also incredibly fluent in working with kids with eating disorders, but they are medical doctors, and these medical doctors can prescribe medicine. Huge debate whether you want to medicate or vaccinate you and your kids, to your family. But there's such noise and fire and tension and rage going on inside the head of a kid with an eating disorder. If you can find a way to lower that temperature through anti-anxiety medications, if you can find medications that work on OCD, anything to soften the edges, lower the temperature, and allow that kid to eat with more peace, it makes a huge difference. The best example is if my daughter had diabetes, I would give her insulin so that she could eat. So let's say you've gone through all that and you've got a kid with an eating disorder. So how to treat these things? I've already said the hospital, it's a machine. When you go to a hospital because you might die or you're so compromised. So a hospital will get you back to not needing to be hospitalized anymore. They'll get you stable. The two best in the area are Stanford and Alta Bates. Once you're stable medically, or if you don't have to go to the hospital, that's great. You need to consider one of two ways to treat this kid. You can go institutional. Like I said, you can go to an eating disorder residential facility. They're all over the country, every part of the every community. There's just different companies. But again, I would look into the ERC is a really good one, and Centers for Discovery. But again, your insurance will dictate how long you're in there. The director of that facility talks to the insurance company of every kid every about 4 or 5 days and gives an update and has to give them an insurance company to send a payment and let them treat them for another 6 days. Other than that, or outside of that, you can do a step-down outpatient program of PHP or IOP, which is a drop-off outpatient program. Again, there's treatment of psychologists, psychiatrists, dietitians, therapists, and group. Those are options. What we decided to ultimately do, and our biggest belief, the gold standard is called Fbt, Family-Based Treatment. At some point, everybody has to come home. You can't live your life in facilities. You can't live your life being treated by other people. You've got to come home and learn to live your life. So my wife and I've already told the story. We took time off. We closed the door. We canceled our life, and we treated our daughter at home nonstop. And you were doing both the state and the weight at the same time, but you have to find an FBT therapist, not just a regular eating disorder therapist, but an FBT therapist who will help coach you through working on a weekly basis of how to make it work. It is hard, but it is the gold standard. Regardless of how you treat your kid, get involved with your school. And I only have experience with Monte Vista. Shout out to David Solomon. But they were there to help. They want your kid to be healthy. They don't want you to suffer. They immediately convened both the counseling group and people from the district. They instigated an accommodation program for her, which would have been more time on test, more access to notes, doing it online. Obviously, this was all pre-pandemic, so now everything's online. The district paid for a home health tutor. This woman took all the assignments from school 4 days a week to my daughter, and then took them all back. And she was authorized to proctor tests. It was an amazing resource. If your kid ends up going to a residential program, either in or out of state, they will have a liaison a lot of times to work with the school. And if you go out of state, they will affiliate with a local school district for you. Just know that your school wants to have, they really, really do. I think somewhere in the link that went out, I put a brief list of resources, but I'll just say again, Stanford has an amazing program. So does Alta Bates as hospitals go. There's a ton of books out there, ton. Two books that I would recommend immediately. The whole FBT approach to treatment is also called the Maudsley approach. And any book by Eva Musby will walk you through the guts of how this thing works, scripts, and what to look for. There's a book called My Life Without Ed, which is a great memoir of how a woman walked away from her eating disorder. We all refer to Ed as eating disorder. My daughter even renamed her eating disorder Edith. You need to go online to the National Eating Disorder Association. They can direct you to a lot of national resources, local, and obviously it's a good resource. There's a lot of Facebook groups. At the end of the day, the whole reason I'm sitting here talking to everybody is I'm here to be a resource for anybody. My phone number, my email is out there. I cannot cure you. I'm not a doctor, but I've been through this, and I can tell you the paths to go down. And as Ankita mentioned earlier, in the next couple of weeks, you will look. It's not going to be a big deal, but I have written what I consider to be a pretty great book. It's part memoir, it's part call to arms, and it's kind of part field guide for how to go to war on this thing. I will have a website, and it'll be online on Amazon. And the book's called Scared Dad Feeding. Kind of the title tells you everything you need to know. Kind of to wrap up, this is a long-term thing. It takes 5, it takes 7, 10 years. Some people live with it for a lifetime. But you have to treat it. You cannot ignore this, and you gotta hit it hard. And you've got to pay attention to it. You cannot ignore it, wish it away, hope it away. You can't. Hope is real. Relief is real. It can happen. I like to joke in a good way. When the NFL puts pink cleats on their athletes once a year and they have a breast cancer awareness week, you have to figure the breast cancer has had its 15 minutes of fame, great resources. There's a lot going on there. Eating disorders not gotten anywhere close to their 15 minutes of fame. We need a lot more honesty. We need a lot more transparency. We need a lot more openness. We've got to remove stigma behind this whole thing. It's just got to be okay to talk about eating disorders. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I am going to look for any questions. Lisa, do you have any questions in your chat box? Kevin, I just, one question to you from my side is, what do you suggest, as a family, because we hear this so much now because parents are constantly, oh, I don't eat carbs. Oh, I don't do this. Oh, I'm on keto. And this has just become everyday normal when we constantly just talk about food in a very negative way. So do you have any advice for parents to kind of like watch out? Or do you think that is a little?
I'm guilty of it too. I'm 51 years old. I can remember all the way back to the Atkins diet. We all value how we look, and we all think that food is the how we look or our value or how people see us. I've just come to the point, as long as you are healthy, no food is evil. All food is good. At some point, you can have a little bit of everything. And I think you're ultimately more at peace with the world if you're not fighting food, or if you have guilt about it or trying to run from it. All of those diets, this is where I don't want to get in trouble. I want to keep this a positive conversation, but anybody advocating or selling a diet is selling you something for a reason. And I think we all know that at the end of the day, no one diet has really ever worked for anybody for a long period of time. I think you just have to eat everything in moderation. You have to find peace with food. Food is fuel. And with food, if none of us ate food, we'd die.
That's true. That's, very well said. I know. Our society.
Ankita, I have a bunch of questions if you want me to chime in. Okay, first we have a comment. UCSF has an amazing FBT program as well.
Yes.
Okay. Then we have comment. My daughter has been vegan for 4 years, 13 and a half years old now. She is very picky. Suggestions about how to see if she's experiencing symptoms.
I'm sorry, what was the last part of the question?
Any suggestions about how to see if she's experiencing symptoms?
So if she's 13 and she's been vegan since she's 9, a couple things at that age, take her to the doctor, like I said, and look for a few things. Is she malnourished to the point where she should have started her period or not? No one data point tells a story, but trend line over time can give a direction. So what happened to her weight and body mass 4 years ago when she became vegan, and has it flattened? Was it supposed to be going in a certain direction? Have her vitals taken, have her blood taken. If she's healthy, if her blood work is good and her heart is strong and her weight trajectory is fine, you know, I guess technically there's nothing you can say like, oh my gosh, I think 8 or 9 or 10 is too young to start going vegan, vegetarian. That's my opinion. I just don't want kids at a delicate age to start demonizing and cornering themselves outside of food. I think because, you know, you got to grow until you are, you know, in your early 20s until you're fully developed, you know, nourish and fully develop that whole thing. But get to a doctor that specializes in eating disorders. And right now, check with both John Muir and UCSF. UCSF has a doctor named Sarah Bakalu, who's pretty amazing. And if you can get in to see her, that would be my advice.
Okay. Next question is, what else can the school district do to support students and parents dealing with eating disorders?
It's really not, it's kind of infinite, to be honest with you. I could probably rattle off the top of my head for a few minutes. I engaged the principal and the counseling office right away. And they got back to us and said, come sit with us. And they had a counselor from the district. I was blown away when I walked into that conference room, how many people were there. And so, you know, you can get anywhere from a 504 program, basically anything having to do with accommodations for leaving school twice a week to go see a doctor, getting more time because you were in the hospital, getting a home health teacher, or knowing, I remember I used to come eat lunch in the parking lot in the car. And so whatever class was right before that teacher let my daughter out 5 minutes early every day, or she knew that she'd be late, maybe coming back in after lunch. Really, it's up to you what you want to ask. And I don't think there's a definitive list, but just go very honestly to the school and say, here's what we're dealing with, and this is our struggles. Can you please help us accommodate what we need to do to get our kid healthy?
Okay. Could you explain about the tutor coming home from district?
Oh, it's called a home health tutor. And this woman, there's at the time was a woman, but they've got 3 or 4 of them. It's a part-time job that people sign up to do for any number of reasons. It could be eating disorder. Somebody, you know, had back surgery and is laid up at home, or, you know, is recovering from something. And what they do is all the teachers send the assignments to the office on Monday, and that person picks them up, brings them to your house, brings them to the hospital, into the residential place, and sits down and says, okay, so here's from your English teacher, here's from your math, here's the note. And it can't really help and do it, but like kind of read through it with them and do all that kind of stuff. And then my daughter would do the assignments. And when she brought back the stuff Wednesday, my daughter would give her the stuff for Monday, Tuesday, and she would do the physical shuffling back and forth. She could also liaise a little bit with the school if there were questions. And again, you know, there's the thing about, oh, if you're not at school to take the test and it's unproctored, it doesn't count. This person is for that kid at home or in the hospital and res has to take. So it's called a home health tutor. And I think there was maybe like 9 hours a week that was approved. The woman who was my daughter's home health teacher, 3 years later now, we still keep in touch with her. She's a wonderful person. She's awesome.
Just one comment before we move on, Lisa. Kevin, there's one parent who said that we want to note that eating disorders come in all shapes and sizes, which is, I think, very important for us to know too, right? Right.
And the ones that I talked about are the ones I'm more familiar with. It's by no means definitive. There's disordered thinking and behavior around food that there's books and books about it. And part of my outreach and part of even my writing my book is I'm trying to just bring the topic up and let's all learn, you know, I'm by no means the final word. Let's talk about other things. Let's get more people to share what they know and make us more aware of these.
Right, right. And then they also mentioned that Eating Recovery Center in Sacramento, they have a beautiful online support system, and it really helped them. Another question is directed towards you, Kevin. If you know of a program that specializes in ARFID.
ARFID?
Yeah.
I don't. Again, I would encourage people, the two I know, I would look up under Stanford and UCSF. I would look up under Eating Recovery Center, Denver, which is around the country, and in Sacramento, and look up Centers for Discovery. There'll be a subsection on each one of those websites under eating disorders of what programs are available for that. So I'm not as specifically known about ARFID, but I would imagine those 4 starting points will definitely get that person who asked the question will get them somewhere.
Okay. How does your daughter feel about you sharing her story?
You got like 5 hours. So my daughter and I, as anybody who's listening to this can imagine, I basically am a teenage girl. I've spent the last 2.5 years of my life like a Secret Service agent on a president with my teenage girl. She's my best friend in the world. Sorry to my wife. I've been through more than you can imagine with this girl, and she and I speak each other's language. We know each other's thoughts. She's blowing up my text right now, but she was the one that told me to write the book. It was her idea that we come up with an outreach program based at kids. My notes that I used for tonight that I've had for years on my presentation, she's made a ton of annotations on it. For my birthday last year, she gave me the essential guide to getting your book published. She doesn't love it. She doesn't want this public, but at the same time, she knows that I've got to talk about it and I've got to try to help people. She knows it's going to take her a long time to get through this. It's hard. She doesn't love it. And as I had said to Ankita earlier today, as much as I want transparency and I want honesty and I want this to be open, I asked Ankita not to use my daughter's name. And anybody who knows me knows who my daughter is. And it would probably take any of you all of a minute to look up and find out who she is. And even in the book, in the introduction, I say that I give her a pseudonym. Again, it's symbolic just to maybe give her a little bit of cover because she's 17 and this has been a part of her life and it's a pain in the ass. But she knows that I'm doing this. And she quietly nods and cheers me on.
What are you doing now to help her stay well?
Our journey's gone on for a long time, and FBT is basically, I'll dumb it down real quick. There's 3 parts to FBT. The first part is the parents' complete control of the food. We buy, we plate, we prep, kid eats, no questions asked. Second phase is collaborative. The child starts to be empowered to help feed themselves. The third part is where we take the water wings off the kid in the pool. She eats all, she preps, she plans. And we've been going through that phase for quite some time. And she's had ups and she's had downs. And I'm basically, as I was describing it as in the answer to the last question, she and I are very close. We text each other and talk about anything and everything. And I'm constantly her counsel. She complains to me, she screams at me, she blames me, she yells at me, but she asks me and then she hugs me. I'm just still here. It's undefined and I couldn't even tell you what I'm doing or how I do it. I'm just here for her full time to try to get her along for as long as it's going to take.
Kevin, follow-up question on that is, how do you even convince a teen to go to a residential or an outpatient, especially when they think there is nothing wrong with them? So how do you close that bridge?
No, I understand. In the extreme, this was not us, but I'll give you 2 examples. In the extreme, there are people who are referred to as goon squads. Let's say you got to go to the ERC in Denver or somewhere. There are services that will basically they'll help you get a kid into the car, get them on the plane, get them there. We didn't have to go through that. With my daughter, the only way through anything is honesty and perseverance. That's all we could do is when she was at her lowest and we said, you need more care. We have to enroll you. You've got to go. And it wasn't easy and it wasn't pretty. But you have to persevere and you have to be honest and you just got to keep pushing. Sometimes they may not want to get in the car. Sometimes they try to lock themselves in their room. That's why sometimes you got to grab them and put them in the car. Sometimes you got to take the door off their room. Or again, sometimes in the extreme, again, we didn't do this. There's, if they're a harm to themselves or harm to others, you can do what's called a 5150, which is an involuntary psychiatric hold, which the police will come and put them in an ambulance and take them to the county hospital. And from there, they can be transferred to a residential program. It's not easy, but I always tried to keep it positive and honest. And again, just persevere and let them know you love them. And this is the best thing for them.
It can be easy.
Okay, can you comment on what you perceive the contribution social media is or was to your daughter's journey? And even now as she's in treatment, how do you manage social media?
You cannot manage social. I mean, you can if you just cut it off and take their phone away or never give it to them. Social media is so pervasive; it's like air. I mean, it still blows my mind to know what my son and daughter look at and live at and understand and take input from all day. But to the base question, I never want to blame everything on social media, but the imagery is sickening. You cannot get around the fact that so much of it is curated. Everybody wants to look a certain way to the world. And so much of the value of the coin of the realm that kids believe exists is how they look. And so there's all the bathing suit shots, there's all the clothing shots, there's all the dress shots. And our kids have got it hardwired to like unlike things, so they compare and want to be like things. When all of us, I'm 51, so obviously the best we grew up with was like Teen Beat magazine or something that you were like every month thought like, oh wow, that kid looks good. But these kids 24 hours a day have constantly got something to compare themselves to. They have something to find value in the world by people liking what they look like. So while I don't want to say social media evil, if there's just a way that everybody can constantly find value and judgment between each other visually, instantly, you're constantly digging sand out of a hole if you're treating a kid with an eating disorder who's a teenager right now.
Kevin, do you want to talk about how even the boys are also increasing in being diagnosed with eating disorders as well, as much as girls, and how somehow we kind of push that in the back end that it's more girls?
That's something I had to learn myself. So I came from a position of knowing nothing about eating disorders. Anorexia was something that models had or whatever. And as I got into it, the majority of the kids I saw were girls, but I think at one root, and I don't want to oversimplify this, it's a classic gender stereotype, and both male and female have their own stereotypes. Men just don't complain of things, or we don't notice it in men, or he's thin, or wow, he's handsome and looks great, or boys just want to be athletic, or boys just want to be yoked and look great. I don't think we pay attention enough to the mental disorder or the mental state of boys. It's still probably no more than 25% of the diagnoses out there are male. But as I've pointed out before, if you're human, you have a brain and you eat, you are susceptible to an eating disorder. So I think there's a lot of men out there, a lot of boys who may not outwardly show it or ask for the attention. But it definitely is pervasive. And I will make a point. There was a huge article in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago. The trend of boys, especially in college right now, there's a whole trend around super, super high protein, low calorie workout, just six pack. It's getting a little crazy. So it's definitely pervasive in boys.
Lisa, did you have any more questions?
I don't have any more questions. We do have the guidebook from, you put that in, Ankita, to everyone? Okay.
Yeah. I just took all the resources that Kevin had sent out. I just put it all in the chat for everybody to save it.
Yep.
And Kevin, you also have your number and your email address. So did you want to just tell people that, is it okay for people to reach out to you directly and email you?
I mean, people think I'm a little nuts, but again, I had nobody to turn to 3 years ago. And this is a terrifying thing as a person, let alone a parent. Last few years, the more I give these presentations, the more people call me. Please text or call or email me. And I'm just happy to be that first call. I mean, I wouldn't have put my name and number out there if I didn't ask for you. And I'm about to publish a website and a book. I just think the more that is talked about and the more that we share information, and if I can just help direct somebody to something that works, yes, absolutely, take my information.
We have a comment for you. Kevin, please tell your daughter thank you for supporting you and sharing your journey with us. Everything we're learning tonight will help us so much in our own journeys. Thank you.
Very nicely said. I appreciate that.
Kevin, what is that one thing that you do maybe every day to just keep strong and resilient towards I know, the love for our children, one, for sure, that will keep us going. But what is that other thing that, sometimes if they're truly bad for you, what do you do?
So there's a chapter in my book, and the title is Writing and Writing. And basically it was, I love to cycle. I like being outside. And so I try to find time away, whether I just get on my bike for an hour. I'm a horrible golfer, but I keep self-punishing myself by going to the driving range, going for a walk. And actually writing this book the last 2 years has been very cathartic for me, is to get stuff out on paper, have a record of it, work it out, your thoughts, talk about it, but know it's there, that you can come back to it. So I don't know if I have a specific answer about what I do every day. My wife and I have been together about 30 years, and my marriage and my home life with her is, it's a joy. And the fact that she has accepted that I'm basically just going to retire and take care of the house and do the dishes and all the errands, and, and work with my daughter, and allows her to have a really fulfilling, amazing career. It's little things like that. Just the small things in life about taking care of the family and trying to be a better person, trying to keep my health up. I don't have a silver bullet, but I do think there's a lot. You bring up a great point. Anybody who is a caretaker, it could be for your mom, for your wife, for your kid, you do have to take care of yourself, and you do have to exercise or find happiness or get away. But I'm a big fan. Write it down, take a journal of it, write a book, sing about it. It really does help to get it out and share it with people.
True.
We had one more question. Were you and your wife on the same page as far as treatment was considered? Because parenting styles are often different. And thank you for any insights.
Oh, so anybody on this call who's married and has kids, for the best kid in the world, you're going to have differences of opinions when it comes to parenting. We've been pretty much on board, very much so, through most of this. There's been times where she's led and taught me, and I had to follow. There were times when I have to jump in and convince her of something we need to do. But I think the answer has more to do with our marriage than, actually, then hold on, let's not make it about me. To answer your question, this is a traumatizing whole time in kids' life. They need both parents. They really, really, really do. And as part of my book points out, it can't just be the mom. Dads have got to be involved. And as long as both mom and dad are around and or together, they do need to be in alignment, and they do need to be together on this. It's very hard to do this, and there will be disagreement. But you do need to, you got to be together. You got to be lockstep. And the first thing an FBT therapist will do before they take you on as a client is interview you as a couple and make sure that you guys aren't going to sabotage each other. Because remember, it's for the good of the kid. And no matter what's going on in your marriage, you've got to take care of this kid, and you've got to be in line and do what's best for them. And there will be financial considerations. There's very emotional considerations about sending your way. And all that plays decision-making as a parent. Again, Tina and I were just very fortunate. The way we've always handled our marriage and our relationship together is, as much as I hate being wrong, she's usually more right than me. But then when I took off work to full-time engage with my daughter, a lot of times I'm on the forefront of the really ugly text thread that I have to do with her to convince her of something. So we take turns.
Yeah. I think one of the parents commented that this is a family disease. It affects everybody, siblings, parents, everyone around them. So take it, like you mentioned, it's everybody's got to pull in.
Yeah. Oh, and the ripple effects are huge. I mean, my son went off to college, fortunately, during most of this, so he wasn't around. But he's heard the war stories. He knows what's going on. But you're right. It affects everybody who walks in the front door.
Right. Well, I think there are no more questions. Of course, lots of thank you to you, Kevin. People really, really appreciate you stepping forward and, giving away, your and your daughters and your family's sacred space out there for everybody to hear you and kind of learn. So it's very, very grateful.
It's got to be talked about. Trust me, I'd rather not be sitting here. I wish none of you knew me. I really wish.
Yeah.
I'd rather be back selling wine, but this is And without being too personal or getting way too into something, after 51 years of my life, I finally signed up with a therapist to work through some things that this has really pushed me into. And the therapist has agreed with me that this is something I've had teed up for 2 years. This is the way that I need to push forward and take care of myself, is to talk to people and help other people, publish this book, talk about it, and create a new identity for myself going forward. And that's how I'm going to feel better about all this and hopefully model good behavior and good future looking ideas for my daughter.
That's wonderful, Kevin. I'm so glad. I'm so glad things are working out for you and for your family.
It's still a long path. Things are
Yeah.
working out at the same time where there's still a lot to do.
True.
But this is amazing, and it's very eye-opening, I think, to most parents to hear. I mean, just listening to all of the tricks that you were talking about and what to look for and what have you. I think it's very eye-opening and very necessary. So
Yes.
yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Trust me, I found a lot of power in honesty. The more honest I am and the more revealing I am, it makes me feel great. And I think it really opens up a lot of people's eyes, and a lot of people are really, really willing to listen. And I do not mean to make this sound like a commercial plug, but I really hope that people will read my book, and you'll see how much it was a very cathartic writing. It just flowed out. And it really is all about how you get this thing out behind the woodshed and beat it up and try to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think you're right. When people are genuine, people hear and they feel and they listen. And so you're very genuine, and I appreciate it. So
Great. And if, going forward, I know we're coming to the end of our hour, and a lot of people have shared a lot of questions. Again, I probably will get people who email me some questions afterwards. Please feel free. I'm happy to get back to anybody and follow questions that somebody didn't want to get involved with on the call. Just find me later.
Kevin, do you have a timeline when you'll be able to publish your book?
So I'm not a writer. I'm not an author. I've never built a website. I mean, I'm an unemployed booze salesman. So I've owned the domain for 2 years. My wife and I have most of the site built. It's been completely edited, and it's with there's a person whose job it is to format it and upload it to Amazon. And I have a meeting with her tomorrow. And so, like I said, it's like we just have to put pictures on the website, do a couple of the functionalities, make sure the book looks good and the cover's okay. I mean, I could probably have it published by Friday if I wanted to, but I'm thinking the next week or two. And as part of our marketing or launch campaign, we're going to be including anybody who's ever been on a Zoom call, anybody I've ever spoken with, is part of who we're going to be contacting.
All right. Yeah. We'll surely, send out the link for you. So
thank you.
This is good. Now, thank you so much, Kevin. I think, Lisa, did you have anything else to say? We're at the top of the hour too. Kevin, thank you so much.
yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for doing this for our entire community. And I know people will come back and they will watch the recording later. We find often people who can't make it, they come back, they'll do that. And I think it'll continue to have an impact. So this will be up on our website probably by the end of the week.
Great. I appreciate you recording it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll repost the links and email the links to all the people who attended the Zoom meeting as well. So.
All right, then. Well, I hope everybody has a great evening. Go eat a nice big dinner. Enjoy your food.
Thank you. You have a great evening.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.